What's up, guys? I'm Josh Pate. That is Steve Wiltfong. The aforementioned young man is who this show is titled after. The weekly Wiltfong recruiting Whiparound. Steve, we got a whole bunch of places to go, so let's skip the formalities. I love you, you love me, but we got to talk about Walter Nolen. I know you saw him up close and in person recently. So number one, I want you to tell me latest impressions. Has anything changed in the recruitment? Where do we stand right now?
Yeah, the explosive five-star defensive lineman from Powell, Tennessee High. I think he's really down to two schools, and I just absolutely love where Texas A&M stands for Walter Nolen. He told me Texas A&M was his leader over the weekend, so you got to love where the Aggies stand there. And he's taken 2 visits there so far this fall, including his official visit to watch the Aggies beat Alabama, and then he returned for the primetime win against South Carolina. And his mom told me after the game that she wants to get back to College Station because she's only been there once. And just, Texas A&M's doing a terrific job with the whole family. Elijah Robinson, the defensive line coach at Texas A&M, was also at the game on Friday. And Walter Nolen says he talks to Coach E-Rob every day. And so I don't think he has a better relationship with anyone in college football than Elijah Robinson. And Texas A&M really wasn't a player in this recruitment until late July. He takes a visit there for their pool party, has a great time, and they've been surging ever since. Texas A&M is the leader for Walter Nolen, and the school, if there's another school that has a chance to beat Texas A&M out in this one, it would be Tennessee and the Vols. And Walter said that he's looking to take an official visit to Tennessee for the Georgia game. His mom said that Tennessee's trying to push that to after the season. And they love what they've seen from Coach Heupel and Coach Garner, the defensive line coach, and the way they've turned around the culture at Tennessee. But I think right now, Texas A&M is clearly the team to beat for Walter Nolen.
Well, you say they're clearly the team to beat, and there's a lot of Aggie juice there. And what that sounds to me like is it sounds like a crystal ball pick. And so what I want to know is this a crystal ball pick? Like, if I press you, are you ready to put that crystal ball pick in yet, or are there still some things to work through?
Well, I refrained from a lot of the Walter Nolen momentum early in the process, where Florida certainly was the one to beat in the spring. And then I think there was some Tennessee momentum after that. But I think now that we're getting later in the process here, viewers need to come to 24/7 Sports and see what they think, what we think the pulse is. And so I think that it is probably time for me to put in the Texas A&M pick for Walter Nolen, and we'll see if that has to change later in the process.
I'm happy right now because I got a Braves World Series and a crystal ball pulled out of Steve Wiltfong within 12 hours real time. I mean, this is, Steve, we've not had this before on the show. Like, this is a big deal. You understand that they're going to be ripples felt all throughout the recruiting industry. And I'm going to do this to you multiple times per Whiparound from now on. You get that, right?
Yeah, man, let's do it. You got to push me over. Sometimes I'm not ready to make these picks, but Walter Nolen, number 2 player in the 24/7 Sports Composite, number 1 defensive lineman in the country. We're going to put one in for the Aggies. Okay.
Well, while we're doing crystal balls, how about you just go ahead and tell me who's going to finish number 1 overall? Because I got Bama up there, Georgia up there. They're always up there. Texas A&M's not in the top 5 right now, but if they land players like Walter Nolen, I don't really know what their ceiling is going to be. So the race for number 1, if you're handicapping it right now, what does that look like?
We have Georgia in pole position right now over Alabama. Big recruiting weekends for both programs this weekend. Let's start with the Crimson Tide. They've finished, I think they're looking for a 10th number 1 finish over the last 12 years, going back to their first number 1 finish under Nick Saban in 2011. The only 2 times they didn't finish number 1 is when Kirby Smart and Georgia did. And this is a weekend that, could really tell where Alabama is going to finish down the road as they bring in a guy like Damani Jackson, 5-star corner from California, who visited over the summer. He's maintained a terrific relationship with Alabama and their staff and their recruits in their class, and has done the same with Michigan. And so Damani Jackson's a guy that you're watching here during spatula season to see if he sticks with the local program and sees what they do with their next head coach, or if an Alabama or Michigan can come in and flip him. You know, Denver Harris is not on the visitor list on Bama Online for this weekend, but he is the guy that Alabama is favored for on the 24/7 Sports Crystal Ball, including my forecast. So to get a corner combination of Damani Jackson and Denver Harris of what's already in the boat would certainly meet the standard of what we're used to seeing in the secondary at Alabama. And then you have Earl Little, another top 100 player, taking his official visit this weekend from American Heritage. And the crystal ball is all Alabama for Earl Little as well. Elite pass rusher Marvin Jones Jr. taking his official visit this weekend. I like Oklahoma coming in, but I'm certainly not ruling out Alabama. They're the biggest challenger, in my opinion. You know, his head football coach is Pat Surtain, whose kid obviously had a great experience at Alabama. And so, you know, talking to Marvin Jones's mom earlier in the process, they know a lot about Alabama and trust that it's a place where Marvin could meet the potential that he has. Caden Curry from my neck of the woods, Indiana, taking his official visit this weekend. I like Ohio State, but he wants to compare his experience at Ohio State last weekend to Alabama this weekend. Kendrick Law is a guy that LSU was trending for at one point. They don't have a coach. Alabama is certainly in the middle of that one. Got some unofficial visitors like receiver Shaz Preston, who's got Alabama near the top. Christian Miller just offered by Alabama this week. The crystal ball says Georgia, but I like Alabama as a dark horse in that one. Alabama's the leader, in my opinion, for Curtis Perry coming in this weekend. Le'Veon Moss is a running back that was committed to them at one point that decommitted. LSU and A&M in there. Anthony Lucas. I like where A&M stands for Anthony Lucas, but he returns to an unofficial to Alabama, and Alabama certainly in the middle of it. Maybe Oregon makes a move there. So Alabama, this is a big weekend for them as far as the race for number one. Georgia, you know, they're in the middle of it for guys like Shamar Stewart. I like the Aggies for Shamar Stewart, but I think Georgia's the biggest challenger. I think Georgia leads for Jaheim Singletary, Kamari Wilson, and Julian Humphrey in the secondary. Our colleague Greg Biggins likes Georgia for Ernest Green, the top 247 offensive lineman. Shamar James takes his official to Georgia this week. That's an Alabama-Georgia battle for the former Florida commit that's going to help dictate this battle for number one. And so Christian Miller is another that could, as he's visiting Alabama this week, like I said. So those are the teams that are certainly in the equation for number one. Texas A&M, you said they're not in the top 5. They're not even in the top 10 right now, but they could finish number one, Josh. When you look at Walter Nolen, they got a great shot at Evan Stewart. Evan Stewart, the number one receiver as of yesterday. Source close to him said he's expected back at Texas A&M this weekend. Shamar Stewart, I have my crystal ball on the Aggies for him. Those are 3 top 10 players uncommitted that I like Texas A&M for. Harold Perkins, the number 11 player in the 24/7 Sports Composite. A&M's near the top for him as he waits to see what happens at LSU. Texas Longhorns are certainly in there. Alabama is maybe a sleeper. Michigan State's making a push. I like, Jacoby Matthews is a guy that they're pushing hard for, that they're near the top for. Eni White, my crystal ball for the number 38 player in the country, is on the Aggies. I mentioned Anthony Lucas. He's a top 247 5-star. I like the Aggies for right now. And there, Chris Marshall, top 247 receiver, I think ends up in the class for Texas A&M. So a lot of top 100 recruits still on the bone for Jimbo Fisher and company, as they certainly look like they are a lock for a 4 straight top 10 class, but maybe they could go number one.
So you know what portion of the season we're in, Steve, when you start flipping your calendar and we get closer to what the casuals out there would call holiday season, we're looking at spatula season. And it's already begun, I know, somewhat, but in earnest, it's really about to kick in. So I'm going to leave you with this and you take us wherever you want to go. This spatula season, how crazy could it get on a scale of 1 to 10?
I mean, it's always a 10. I wish people think that us in the media want that. I want no chaos. I want easy stories. I want, if guys are committed, I want to forget about them. They sign and they're gone. But there's always going to be flips, and particularly kids that have official visits remaining in December. Sometimes they just chomp at the bit to use them because maybe they only use 3 during the summer, and they can go out and get some surf and turf. And next thing you know, you're falling in love on your visit with this new school that you're eating, a ribeye and lobster at. So I got a flip coming this week, in my opinion. Spatula season. I think the number 1 player in Arkansas, Isaiah Sategna, is going to flip from Oregon to Arkansas. So I think that'll be a big win for Sam Pittman and his staff. And Oregon lost another 4-star receiver earlier this week when Oklahoma came in and flipped Nicholas Anderson out of the Lone Star State. But don't feel too bad for Oregon, who controls its own destiny to the college football playoff, right, Josh? I mean, they're number 4. If they win out, they're in, right?
Do you see my face? This is the face of uncertainty, Steve. I am not ready to say that yet.
They have the win over Ohio State.
They do. But if
the Buckeyes cannot jump them.
Well, can't is a strong word, Steve.
We cannot live in a world where a game has been played on the field and you cannot speculate. I mean, you had the opportunity, the game was played.
Yeah, well, we live in a world where people willingly eat moon pies, Steve. So anything can happen.
All things even, I lean towards, did they play each other or who has the most NFL talent? So I always get a kick out of when Alabama gets ranked high and people out of jealousy get so angry when damn well Alabama's really good. Now, if Alabama loses another game, they're out, but all things even, 1-loss Bama, incredibly talented, they're in. Oregon fits my criteria of they played Ohio State, they beat them. It was in September, but they beat them, so they're in. They control the destiny. And I wouldn't mad about that because I think they're going to land Darius Clemens, a top 247 receiver from in-state, and I think they're in the middle of it for 5-star receiver Kevin Coleman from St. Louis, who's been considered a Florida State lean for a long time. But Kevin Coleman had a great visit there this summer. And then Nigel Kelly is one of the best pass rushers in the country, a top 100 player from Florida. He was at Oregon so long last week that you could have sent him mail there and he would have received it. He was on their campus line. I think Oregon's the one to beat for Nigel Kelly. Now, can they maintain that all the way to the early signing period and get them in the fold? That's the hard part. It's the hard part for a lot of schools. You can lead early and not lead at the end. We've seen Alabama break a lot of hearts on the recruiting trail for schools that think they lead for a prospect for 3-4 months, and then they're one Alabama visit away from being, part of Nick Saban's next class. But I like where Oregon stands with guys like Nigel Kelly, Cyrus Moss, Darius Clemens. It's going to be another probable top 10 class for Mario Cristobal and company out west.
A loaded whip around, and also keep it locked on 247sports.com every day for all the latest. Steve, we have exhausted ourselves on this one. So we'll send it off to edit. We'll see the folks next week. Any parting words? Yeah.
Make sure you guys that are watching this are getting checked. This is November month here, and you're tuned into us. So we need you. We need you watching Late Kick. We need you watching Whip Around. And really, there's just a lot of people that are counting on you. So get in and see your doctor. Get in and get checked out. And this is the month to remind us that we're not too busy to take care of our own health.
We're going to get that government funding for Whip Around any second now. Stephen, always a pleasure. We'll see you next week.